Many people are stepping through life believing that their story will always hold them back in some way. And I can totally relate because I have been there too, believe me. What I wish I had in those moments was a reference point, someone or something to help me believe that even the darkest parts of my story was shaping me into the person I was always meant to be. Nowadays, as a international speaker, entrepreneur, and husband to the most amazing woman, I've made it my mission to help you own your story so that you can live a life of impact, influence, and inspiration. I'm Winston Ben Clements, and this is Born to Win. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Born to Win. And yeah, I just hope it's been a great start to the year. I mean, I know it's only week 2, but I really do hope that you're staying committed to your plans, to your goals. But even if you've gone a little bit off track, which can happen, I just want you to not to be discouraged. Instead, I want you to give yourself some grace, some self-compassion, and just remember that life, that this year is a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. And same with life. Life is a marathon and it's not a sprint. So, as long as you replan and stay committed, then you still have plenty of time to recover, right? So I just wanted to start off with that bit of encouragement for you. And also just to thank you so much for the feedback on last week's episode, which was on manifesting your dreams. And honestly, my heart was filled with so much joy when I saw your comments on this topic. And yeah, I guess I'm just truly humbled that it resonated with so many of you. And I've also had a lot of people who mentioned that they would like me to do a live Q&A on Facebook, which is something that I offered, and it's something that I've been considering, to be honest, for a little while, as a way of creating more more connection between us, right? And so if you haven't already joined the Facebook group, I really encourage you to do so as soon as possible, because I will be starting those live Q&A sessions with you very soon. So you get to chat to me, ask me any questions about my story, about any of the podcast episodes. So definitely join the Facebook group, because this will be taking place soon. And if you look in the show notes, make sure that we put in the link to join the Facebook group in case you haven't done so already, right? And I guess as I was thinking about what felt present to me, or what I felt called to share this week, I think one thing that kind of just came to mind was it was a phrase that I heard, and I think maybe the first time I heard it was about 3 years ago, right? And the phrase is choosing your own weather. So the phrase is choosing your own weather. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was my mentor at the time who first mentioned this phrase, and we're just having a conversation, and he mentioned it, and it really stuck with me for some reason. And I think he discovered the phrase from either a book that he read or a song. But yeah, it's something that really stayed with me when he mentioned it in our conversation. And so what does it mean? What does choosing your own weather mean? And maybe just to kind of frame it, I guess with everything that's been going on in the world recently, and I can speak particularly here in the UK where I live, with the pandemic, all of the stuff that's going on with the politics, with the economy, etc. It's very, very easy to feel like you're getting sucked in to what feels like almost like a never-ending stormy season, right? Like we're kind of engulfed by it. It's in the media, everyone's talking about it. Like it's almost like a dark cloud hanging over us at this present time, right? And so, and by the way, I'm sure many of you, it doesn't matter where you're listening to this right now, all over the world. I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this on some level because we've all experienced a pretty tough or up and down 12 months, no matter where in the world you live, right? And so, yeah, I guess coming back to the phrase, so when I first heard these words, choosing your own weather, I think actually the first images that came into my mind, it actually took me, it kind of took me back to my childhood. And yeah, it kind of took me back to those days when I was younger when, for example, there'd be days when, children like to play, right? And I was no different. And so there'd be days when I would want to be outside, playing with my friends, or to be outside doing some kind of fun activity with my family. But then we wouldn't be able to do it because of the weather, because it was raining, for example, right? And so instead of doing this fun thing that we had planned, or with me hanging out with my friends outside, we'd have to, do something different or stay inside, right? And even thinking back to those days, even though that was those moments they're quite annoying, they're quite frustrating, right? When you're younger, especially, being outside with your friend or just having fun, it kind of feels like the end of the world in those moments. If somebody tells you you can't play, then it just feels like a really big thing. So it was super frustrating and annoying at the time. But then, like I said, usually you would do something different. So, okay, it's like, okay, we can't go outside, we can't play outside or go swimming. So usually you discover something different. So it'd be, you just discover that there were other fun things that you could do indoors, for example, right? So maybe watch a movie, play computer games, just hang out indoors. And actually, by the end of the day, you'd have forgotten that, we were meant to go out, we were meant to go swimming or go and visit someone, because you ended up having a decent time, a fun time, indoors doing something different, right? And so I guess what was transpiring there was the weather. The weather was no longer a factor. So initially, there was this plan to go outside and have a good time, but then the plan got cancelled by the weather, and you ended up discovering something fun to do indoors. And so at the end of the day, actually the weather was no longer a factor, right? In you having a good time. You still managed, this was me actually, I still managed to have a good time, despite the plans changing. So the weather was no longer a factor. And so why did I tell you all of that? And so bringing it back to today, I guess the question is, how can we, today, how can we choose our own weather, despite all the chaos that seems to be going on outside, right? How can we create a space that is not affected by, all the craziness that's going on in the world, right? All the stuff that might be impacting our finances, our relationships, our health. How can we choose our own weather despite everything, right? And yeah, honestly, one of the things that's really worked for me, as I was thinking about it and reflecting and meditating on this question, I think one of the things that's worked for me is honestly just to take things moment by moment and day by day, which sounds super boring when you first hear it. Like, oh my God, yeah, take it day by day. It doesn't sound, it sounds pretty generic, right? But hear me out. So for me, even when I think about my story, and, you guys will be, if you're a regular listener on this platform, you'll be a little bit familiar with my story. But even for me, thinking about the daily challenges of being so different because of my disability, right? My profound disability, that means, physically, I had a lot of injuries growing up. I use a wheelchair. So there was a lot of challenges for me to overcome, right? But even thinking about this, I think I got to a place where I eventually realized, I think I came to the realization that I could never control the external weather, right? And so what do I mean by this? I mean, I came to a place where I was at peace, that I could never fully control other people's, things like other people's perceptions of me, things like how other people would treat me in life and in society, right? I could never control that. However, there were other things that I could definitely control, or at least influence, right? Now let me think of an example. I could definitely control or influence my attitude, right? I could influence my own mindset. I could influence my own my work ethic, or the types of people that I decided to surround myself with, right? And so by doing this, by focusing on those things which I could influence, for me, this was me being able to choose my own weather, right? To find a way of making progress in life, even though in my life, even though it would have been very, very easy and maybe even understandable, right? For me to just give up and let myself get just swept away by what everyone might have been saying or thinking, or just all the obstacles that I had to face, day to day in my situation. And I guess, today's message, I'm going to keep it brief. I would say my simple message for you, or the thing that I would love for you to take away as food for thought, is this. How can you apply this idea of choosing your own weather despite everything that the world wants to throw at you, right? How can you, or to put it another way, which might sound a little bit cheesy, but how can you surround yourself with sunshine even when it seems to be raining everywhere else? How can you choose your own weather? And that's it, guys. As always, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to join me here today, and I honestly really hope that you got some value for this message. I know these are different times that we're living in, and hopefully there was a word there of encouragement that somebody needed to hear today, and that resonated with one or many of you today, right? And by the way, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, and actually I'd really encourage you, with this episode in particular, I'd really encourage you to share it, just in case it might help a loved one, or just someone in your network, someone that you know, because these, like I said, these are different times that we're living in, and we all need that little boost and that little encouragement from time to time, and hopefully this episode can be that for someone. So that's all that I had to share with you today, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. But until then, have a fantastic and fruitful week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And by the way, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or some other kind of app, and you got some value from today's episode, then I'd absolutely love if you could drop me a quick review. Until next time.